and welcome to this episode of Will They Make It?
We're Blair and Jen Koss, and we're here today to talk about being pointy.
So what does it mean to be pointy?
Well, there's some elements here that are a little off the beaten path for some folks. So what we mean by being pointy is to really find very specific things that excite certain people. So we're not trying to serve everybody. We're trying to just really celebrate very specific folks that have very specific passions and interests.
Yeah, and actually, we weren't the ones that came up with this. We oftentimes will espouse to our main marketing guru, Seth Godin. Another shout out.
Pointy.
He is pointy. But you know, he is, as somebody said, the Yoda of marketing these days. And
I'm not sure how he feels about that.
But there really is something about the fact that in today's marketplace, you cannot be all things to all people. The ones who can be all things to all people are really Target, Walmart, and Amazon, and they have got such scale that they can serve the places.
Well,
but
they just force the middle to everybody.
They do. But if you are going to survive as a smaller independent or even a smaller, bigger brand, then you really have to get pointy. And what pointy really means is getting niched. And that means you have to get serious. You actually have to put something on a piece of paper that says, I am not trying to go for the entire consumer in America. We are looking for a very specific slice of people, and that's who we are going to serve. And the trick is nailing who that slice is.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun when you get people really excited about what you're doing. And by doing that, those people that get really excited, there's far more people are totally confused, don't get what you're doing. And so it gets to be an interesting, kind of test of your mettle as a designer and as a
It is, because you have to be unapologetic for it, because the people who just love it, where this is their jam, like, you don't want to offend them because they are your customers, and they can tell whether you have made it for them or not. And I think that's where you have to have actually a lot of self-confidence to be very pointy and very niched, because what you're saying is, for this group of customers, we are serving them and we're not worrying about the rest of the folks. And this drives a lot of our decision making and what you do.
Oh, absolutely. It's what are you carrying? How are you communicating? What is the look of the space?
What products do you offer?
What products are you going to offer? And we have some good ideas that just doesn't make sense to those tribes, and so we don't pursue those further. So it's a really interesting problem.
And we'll get into a little bit later, like the marketing and stuff, but Blair, so let's talk right off the bat with the product. So like the Rosie the Riveter, like, why did you go after that? Why did we do this kind of thing?
Well, it's a key thing is to pick a point of view, and we just happen to know that we were both grandchildren of women who worked in the factories during World War II. Rosie the Riveters, we're here in Pittsburgh, and so that founded the brand. Because Rosie the Riveter was a Westinghouse in Pittsburgh poster.
One of the posters.
And so then that allowed us to start thinking, okay, what happened during the war and post-war as far as being industrial, making things, design decisions. So that kind of led you to the vintage fabric cords in our designs.
It did, and then actually also bringing in that industrialness of the World War II into then that mid-century modern, where a lot of the mid-century modern design actually came about as you came out of World War II. It was the new materials, and it was also the production capacity they had in the factories. And so now that we didn't need it to build planes, trains, and tanks, then how do we actually, in airplanes, how do you actually turn that to then create product? And so that's how we got like a lot of the innovative chairs and designs that you saw. They're actually war materials
fascinating time.
Repurposed.
And there was so much, because you had all that stuck up demand, from the war being all focused on the war effort to right afterwards, it left room for a lot of creative people to do some really interesting and special things. And so we wanted to pick up on that thread as well, connected to the Rosie the Riveter and post-war. And so that whole idea of being creative, design, worthy, and really thinking that stuff through, that then led us to create products that are very tight to specific people. So we got into the vintage cameras that are mid-century modern, cameras that are turning into lights. Projector lamps that were, kind of a really big deal to be able to see home movies for the first time. That happened, primarily right after the war into the 50s. And so all of these things, if you're a filmmaker, you walk in here, we are celebrating what you are all about. And, can you make a living on just filmmakers and photographers alone? The answer is actually yes. It turns out that you don't need millions and millions of people to buy your product.
You really need 1,000 plus really true devoted fans to keep a viable small business running. And this really segues into the fact of what we talked about is going deep and connecting with a tribe.
Yes.
And it actually goes back to another episode we did about being authentic. But if you are going to do that, then what you do is you go deep. And so then your storytelling has to resonate with that. You go deep with that. And then you're really speaking to that person and connecting with that smaller group of people. But when you connect with that smaller group of people, you're speaking to them and they are all about it. And I mean, I would say it's a much bigger scale, but take a look at the Trekkies. I mean, Trekkies started off as a very niche thing and now it's these big conventions and it's a much larger scale. But there are people that, I mean, that is their passion.
They're all about.
I mean, we don't have to talk, it's fun that.
And I think to get back to the 1,000, because I know there's folks out there going, 1,000 people, I'll die and starve to death if I don't have 1,000 people. And it's like, it's not just 1,000 people loosely interested in walking through. No, these are the people who come in and they really are fans of what you're doing and they're really spending the money and they're really supporting you time and time again. Those 1,000 people will make a business.
Well, and again, really, the landscape has changed with this. So there are actually very few businesses now that are going to go and reach millions upon millions of customers. Those days have really switched. And again, we mentioned some of the big players now, and not saying that as we progress through time, there won't be another big player that comes up, but that is really kind of the unicorns out there. And so now in today's retail landscape, really the true success stories are going to be the ones where you're never going to be the big, but you're finding that niche and serving that group of people.
And I think the younger generation too is very much interested in things that resonate with them. So it's very important for them for it to be meaningful and specific to them. They also don't want to be wearing what everybody else is wearing.
Correct.
Doing what everybody else is doing. So they're really looking for very niche specific things.
Well, and the internet has opened this up where you can go and you really can go this very deep dive into a specific group of people. Also, they want to look unique. Now, if you've got all those Instagrammable moments and everything, do you want to be wearing what everybody else has? No, you want to be unique.
So great time to be a vintage store.
But I will say, yes, it's a great time to be a vintage store. But I will say, getting Pointy does elicit some reaction. So I will do you get the people that come in here and they're just like, ooh, this is so cool, and you love those people.
Yeah, those moments are a lot. We're in this mall here, and so those moments are wonderful, and we love to work and interact and inspire people in those days. But there's a lot more, especially in the mornings, where they just stand at the door like shaking their heads, have no idea what we are doing, and it can be painful. You got to have some thick skin when you're doing this type of work.
But here's the thing though, and I'm so glad I heard about this before we open the doors, is actually it's just as important, besides all the people that shower you with love, it's just as important those people that come in and actually give you those negative responses. Because if somebody really doesn't care and it's not for them and they're indifferent, they just walk by and they'll never walk in the door. And so, but if somebody walks in and actually can get hostile in your space,
and they do.
But what that means is they can tell there's something cool going on, they can feel the heat, they feel that there's a momentum, and they can see that other people like it. And what it is it's that emotional response that says, why isn't it for me?
I don't get it.
Or I don't get it, and I don't understand why I don't get it.
And therefore, I need to let people know that I'm unhappy about not getting it.
Yes.
And so we get some fun ones.
Yeah, so Blair, what are some things that entrepreneurs, so if we're going to say that you got to get pointy though, you do have to have some thick skin. So what are some things that the folks out there can do when you're dealing with that kind of hostility coming in the store and understanding you're not going after everybody?
Wear leather. Or body armor. No, I mean, I think you have to count like a numbers game where for, every person that walks in and grumbles and shakes their head and says, and my favorite one is they walk around, they shake their heads like, I don't get this. What are you doing here? Do you sell things? They then always leave the door at the threshold and go, best of luck to you.
And just so you know, best of luck to you is basically saying, we think you're full of crap.
Well, I like to say there's a thin line between luck and the other four-letter word.
Yes.
To ya.
But yet, what happens if somebody doesn't have the confidence and they just race to the middle? What's going to happen?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're racing the middle, you're competing with the big brands. So now, our lighting it's wonderful
Good luck
stuff.
trying to price better than Amazon.
Yeah, I mean, if you race in the middle and you start buying things and you start cutting the quality down, you start skimping on design so that you're trying to please everybody, then you're going to be competing with Target, you're competing with Amazon, and your sales are going to dry up.
And there's nothing wrong with those brands. I mean, I shop Amazon, I shop, Target as well. I mean,
it's a
there's nothing
functional.
wrong. They have scale. They have massive scale, so they are making money, but they can make the product at a price point that they get the scale. And you, as a small retailer, you are never going to be able to price better than they will for scale.
So like I say, the kiss of death for us anyways would be to compete on price.
Yes.
And I think that's going to be the case for a lot of small
Yes.
business owners.
Yes,
So.
and it also then means that you got to have compelling product, and it has to be a product that you can't find anywhere else. So,
So
hey,
good luck being pointy.
Yeah.
Everybody put their cone heads on.
So, and now it's on to your questions, and we'll be getting to this week's question. But Blair, for how do people submit questions for
Just
episodes?
go to our website, willtheymakeit.com, look for the button, submit your questions, and we'll be looking for you to submit a short video or a voice memo of you actually asking your questions.
Cool. All right, and now on today's question.
Hi, my name is Ian Sprint, and I'm from Butler, PA. And my question is, what are some of the foundations from each of these brands? What inspiration did you pull from them that gave you what your company is today?
Ian, that's such a cool question.
Yeah, it is.
All right, I'm going to start off really quick.
Okay,
The brand that inspired me, Shinola.
Just
Everything about what Shinola does, they take a very distinctive point of view, but they have a lot of different products that come in, and how they gel that together with the nostalgia, the storytelling, the quality, the aspect to it, and making a cohesive brand is just really impressive, and it was something it aspired to. And I actually purposely went after Shinola. When we started Rosie, Adweek called Shinola the coolest brand in America, and I really paid attention to that. And so now when it comes here to the Rosie experience, it just makes my heart sing when I have people walk through and they're like, this is the coolest thing I've seen. And I've actually had some of our customers say, boy, this reminds me of Shinola.
And then she does a little dance when that happens.
I do a little happy dance when I hear that. So really, it is that definite thing that Shinola goes after.
Yep. For me, Ian, it's Lush. I just love that brand. It's because they make it fun. Like, all aspects of that company is fun. And it comes down to the experience you have when you're in the store. The employees, when you talk to the employees, they truly enjoy working there, because the whole corporate from the top down is all about being fun and having a good time and experience.
They have great stories, great window displays.
Yeah, and that's part of what we take from that brand as inspiration, is the storytelling, the experience of having fun when you're in here. And people do feel like they're kids in a candy store when they're in this store. So that's our answer. So thanks, Ian.
Thanks, Ian.
Okay, and that's a wrap for this week's episode of Will They Make It?
We'd like to thank our producer, Claire Costello.
Thanks, Claire. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.